So this is the Whitney Laboratory here on the Intercoastal Waterway, just a couple hours east of us. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is kind of my journey through the social media vortex that I've been in over the last few years. So as Meg mentioned, one of the things you might not know about me is I also had an art gallery for about 10 years. And we placed artwork in high net worth individuals' homes across the nation and internationally. And one of the things that I learned in working with those folks is that many of them were not on social media. So I would ask them how they heard about us or how I could keep in touch with them, and rarely did it involve any kind of social media. But over the years, that has been changing. So one of the things that our university, our colleges and units can help people with is that sense of community. This is a picture of a recent appreciation event, and as you can see, people are feeling pretty connected in this picture. Social media does that for people too, and as more and more people are joining it, it can be a way to help people connect to your unit more closely. So how many of you guys are really excellent at the humble brag? I'm going to raise my hand. Anyone else? Yeah, okay, we got someone else. So as many of you might know, it's much easier, at least for me, to brag about my family or my friends and not necessarily myself. And using social media in stewardship and fundraising is an opportunity for us to humble brag about our folks that help us, but it's also an opportunity for them to share their impact. So a couple of years ago, when I first started at Whitney, we really didn't have much participation in our social media pages. One of the first projects I worked on was raising funds for a Prius to help our graduate students get over to main campus back and forth. And so we took this picture with our students in front of the Whitney Lab, and I posted it on our Facebook page, which just had a couple hundred followers. And in talking to my trustees there, our board of directors, I asked them, did they see the picture? No one had seen it. So I sent it by email and a little bit by snail mail because our folks weren't really on the media. But over time, what I started noticing is people started friending me personally. And what that meant for me was I had to cultivate my page a little bit more. So I couldn't necessarily post all of my Sunday morning bestie brunches with champagne so much, so I had to kind of, curtail that a little bit. So a couple years ago, I had the opportunity to work with one of the Innovation Institute's courses, and they were undergraduates from the business school and the art school, and they tried to help us look at our media. And one of the things that they taught me in that class was that older adults are joining social media, mostly because of the iPhone and as a way to connect to their families. And usually they're using social media for two things. They're using it for mood enhancement, so that's important. And the second thing they're using it for is to align with a social cause or say where they stand on a subject. Unlike other age groups, they may use social media more to share information, but they don't necessarily post about themselves. So that's one trend that they noticed. So I had a wonderful stewardship opportunity back in August. One of our key volunteers who helped us really start up our sea turtle hospital at the Whitney Lab was able to release a turtle. So she released the sea turtle, Jean Johnson, to a crowd of about 250 people. We were able to share that and live stream it in Facebook, and we had a class in Australia watch the release. So it was a really great opportunity for stewardship to thank her and to also show her impact worldwide. And thinking about the people that I work with, one of the things I do try to build into my communication strategy is their interests. So I have another supporter of the lab who's very interested in women in science. And just last month, Jessica Welpley, one of our graduate students, had the opportunity to go down in a submersible to study jellyfish in the deep sea. So the first thing I did, of course, was send her this picture. It was also picked up by UF News, and they did a beautiful article. So one of the things I try to think about is those connect points. And so it's not just social media, but it's media and articles of what your people are doing that can help build more rapport and connection with your donors. So some recent research has tried to take a look at this. And so we're all pretty familiar with the donor pyramid. And what that talks about is basically our high-income individuals who are more engaged with us tend to have a more high-touch communication with us. And people at the bottom who may be just giving small amounts, they may get mass communications from us, like emails and postcards, but those higher folks we want to have more communication with. Well, social media has actually disrupted the pyramid, according to some. And so what they're saying is the pyramid is now a vortex. So communication has become a swirl around people. And so people are kind of at the center of it. Our communication is around them, and their impact can be wide and great based on the amount that they use. One of the things that I've been kind of challenged with in using our various media is slacktivism. And you guys might know what that is, but it's basically saying, yeah, I support that, but not really taking any action. And so in fundraising, I've definitely found that using social media has been more about stewardship and engagement and not necessarily large campaigns where I've raised funds for things. For example, this summer, we have just not been able to keep these rainbow tie-dye t-shirts in our place. They are flying out the door. So everyone wants a t-shirt, and that's awesome, and it supports our programming. But what I find is when we talk about we have these 6 turtles and we're trying to find a cure for this disease that's impacting them, can you help us? We get a lot of sad face emojis. And sad face emojis don't pay for turtle medicine, and they don't build buildings. So in thinking about your communication plan with your key donors, and I'm not saying everyone, but I'm talking about those key folks you're working with, it's important to try to get to know, I think, what kind of social media they might be engaging in. For me, I'm talking about Facebook because that seems to be where people are now that I work with. Of course, that is going to change because it's all changing so quickly. But I can imagine the folks in the business school are much more utilizing LinkedIn and other social media. Sorry. So this is our beautiful Center for Marine Studies building. We have a really nice auditorium in it, and it's a named auditorium. And what I found when I came to Whitney is Marineland across the street was calling it the Marineland Auditorium. And that's Georgia Aquarium. That's not UF. That's not Whitney. So one of the first things that I made sure is that when we did any press releases or any events on our Facebook, it said the name of our auditorium. And what ended up happening was, shortly after, I found that members of the family who had named that would share events and things on their Facebook. And they would share it to pretty large groups like I Love St. Augustine that has like 50,000 followers. So it was an interesting way that they got engaged with us. And over time, 2 members of the family have become some of our largest supporters. We also use social media to thank people. So we do mini movies, and we've put those out to thank volunteers and to thank donors. And I think that's a really nice way to spread the thank you so that other people see it too. So remember that volunteer I told you about who got to release the turtle? Well, this is her daughter. And she had a wonderful opening statement at our campaign kickoff event. We had the opportunity to place a volunteer, and she took it as a time to thank her mother for her impact on conservation and her efforts to improve the world we live in. Her mom was in the audience, and she videotaped it on her iPhone. She posted it to her page, and it was amazing to see the response of her friends. She had over 300 comments talking about her daughter. It was just a wonderful opportunity to engage someone and their family at the next level. So this may or may not be my current profile picture. I'm I'm piloting an underwater drone, and so one of our trustees just built this over the summer with his family, and we're going to use it to track fish. And one of the things that we actually discovered at the Whitney Lab is that fish use vortices to travel faster and more powerfully. So I want to take a cue from these fish. Let's use the vortex to further engage our donors and do it a little bit smoother. And don't forget the humble brag. And do you mind? Thank you.